So it's from Nano. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but he says that there's an IPO dropping tomorrow on the New York Stock Exchange called ARM. It's a semiconductor company based in the UK. Are you familiar with that? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I've seen it in the news. The thing with IPOs in the US, they operate very differently from Jamaica in that you are not that period in Jamaica where you're able to subscribe, like we just did for One Great Studio, that period where you're taking the subscriptions, that's not usually as available to the public as it is here. So with ARM, what will happen is that the allocation, all that has already been done, then the IPO is the start of trading on the stock. Usually it's a very volatile period because now we're doing that big rebalance. Those who would have been pre-IPO are usually at this time trying to exit. New investors may be coming in. And it could be like we saw for Instacart where, we do the IPO and then the share price tanks in the early days just because of the market mechanics and the dynamics behind it. So this, I know about it. It's a solid company. I don't know if your question is about how it's going to perform. Once it starts trading, we really won't know because it's a factor of what demand and supply will come in. So I can't really know, but it's a solid company.
Okay. Next question for Keisha. So these questions are just coming at us with no preparation. So I don't know if Keisha is prepared to answer it, but we'll throw it out there anyway. It comes from Jose, who wants to know your thoughts on.
Yeah, I didn't know what that is.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
If anybody does know what it is, answer in the chat. So Keisha, you have a conference coming up on the heels of the success of your Build Wealth with Real Estate conference. You're like, let's do it again.
This one is a workshop. So coming out of the conference, what a lot of persons wanted was, hey, Keisha, teach me in more details. And so we're going to be having a wealth building workshop, which is more now detail oriented for persons who say, know the nitty gritty around how to build a portfolio to create wealth. How do I combine my real estate with my stocks, with my other investments to create a portfolio that I know will build wealth for me? Because the thing is, a lot of persons, we do a little IPO, we do some APO, we're doing some investments, we have some real estate, but do I have the right amount of each? Am I putting in the right amount of money each month?
Mm-hmm.
How much should I be putting in these APOs? Should I be even participating in them? Should I be doing IPOs or should I be just looking at companies that are already listed? Should I be looking at US companies? So there are a lot of questions that are out there. And so this workshop is specifically set up to teach persons how to build portfolios. What are the actual strategies that you use to combine your real estate with your stocks, with your unit trusts, and create this portfolio that is diversified, that we know can stand the test of time. If anything happens, the portfolio is still there, strong, secure, and able to build wealth for you for multiple generations. So the workshop's going to be on Saturday, October 14. We're back at the AC Hotel. We said at our place. So we're back at the AC Hotel Saturday, October 14. This time we are doing registration in person and virtual. So got the virtual hookup. So we're going to have both for persons who can't make it in person. Virtual tickets are there. And so if you want to sign up, you go to profitjumpstarter.com/workshop. Grab your tickets.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. And it's October 14th, you said?
Yes.
Which is Saturday?
Saturday, yeah. But
that
we also have the replay available. We're trying to, we're doing, we will inside joke with Kalila, but we are going to have the replay set up properly for this one. So that will also be available as well.
All right, good. Good. Well, thank you so much, Keisha. I know you got to run. So
I want to address one thing in the comments I saw first. I can't make it slip. A lot of persons are talking about dividend, appreciation, not now go on with companies. But one of the main things when you think about investments, you have two hold to it. You have appreciation and dividends. Yes, but there are self-made returns as well that you can have. Thank you, Nikki. They're self-made returns. So don't necessarily look on the fact that for now, you're not getting that appreciation or dividends from NCB. Look at the fundamentals. You can't go wrong. Stocks always come back to fundamentals. That's what works. That's what stands the test of time. So don't be swayed by what's happening right now in the short term. Always, always, always look at the fundamentals. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you once again, Keisha. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye.
Let's get back to David now. So we have a lot of questions that we need to get to. I'll try to get to as many as possible. But you also wanted to talk about Seprod's upcoming AGM. Why is that important for us to note?
So if you actually take a look at the company's notice of AGM, there's a key item that, kind of stood out to me, which was item 5, to increase the authorized share capital of the company, to consider and if the FATF pass the following resolution, that the authorized share capital of the company be increased by 220 million new ordinary shares from 780 million ordinary shares to 1 billion ordinary shares, and that the board is authorized to do particular things. That is something you don't just ignore, Kalila. That means a couple of things. So whereas we're talking about the potential reasons for NCB, FGD, and APO, in the case of Seprod, it could potentially mean, for example, the expansion of the business, through another capital event, or for example, they look to acquire another significant business and offer some of the Seprod shares as consideration for the transaction. I remember seeing the preference
Wait, hold on,
shares.
go back. Read back the thing again more slowly.
Apologies for being so fast. So to increase the authorized share capital of the company, to consider if the FIT pass the following resolution, that the authorized share capital of the company be increased by 220 million new ordinary shares from 780 million ordinary shares to 1 billion, and the board of directors of the company are hereby authorized to, it mentions a lot, and convert and do other processes subsequent to that.
So Stepprod doing an APO or a rights issue too?
No, as I was pointing out, it doesn't necessarily have to be the case like that, because when you, let us say even Tropical Battery as a recent example, where they have acquired Kai and Damrep, part of that transaction or deal would have been to issue shares to the seller in the company. So Tropical would have paid some cash and they'd have offered some shares in Tropical, new shares to the seller so they could become a shareholder in Tropical Battery. So in the case of Seprod, it doesn't have to be an equity raise in one perspective. It could also be the case whereby they see the opportunity to actually acquire, another business, potentially somewhere in the region or elsewhere. Could be the case whereby they could do a share swap, whereby some of the AS Bradin shareholders would give their AS Bradin shares in exchange for Seprod shares. So there are different ways that this can entirely play out. But to just see come out of nowhere, like, that was unexpected. Because the last time Seprod had an increase in its shares was whereby it actually issued new shares, to the owners of Facey Commodity Company Limited. So, that was Seprod acquired Facey Commodity Company Limited, and I was able to grow its books considerably since then, and was able to acquire AS Bradin recently. But back in 2018, we would have acquired Facey Commodity Company through the issuance of shares. It would have been no cash at all. And even when Seprod sold their building, one of the distribution centers they had before, they sold it to Epic Property Fund. And in that deal, Epley would have issued shares to Seprod for the building, no cash transferred again. And what Seprod did in that situation was they actually gave a dividend whereby if you own more than 10,000 shares, you got an Epley Property Fund shares as part of your dividend. So this is just to kind of show you that although a company will be increasing the share capital, and they're talking about converting to stock units and everything else, we don't ever go into this by equity raise as one simple way, whether a rights issue or APO. It's just up in the air because I pointed out they can easily go back to 2018 scenario whereby they give shares to the other party to actually settle a transaction, in this case an acquisition.
Very, very interesting. So when is that AGM?
And this is my moment where I blame Flo. Thanks for the poor internet.
I think it's the
Sorry, I
27th.
missed again. I'll go Kalila.
The
Correct.
27th.
27 that at Terra Nova at 10 a.m. It's going to be hybrid.
So we should expect to get more information at that event. Are you going to attend and report for us?
I don't know. That day is a Wednesday. I'm not sure that day is going to be as yet, but I can always send questions via the virtual platform and hopefully they actually answer them. So that's one option.
Okay, yeah, we'll wait for that that update because that's a very interesting development. Let's go down the line answering some of the questions we have here, and I'll take like the next 10 minutes and
Sure.
just as many as we can in that time. Starting from very early in the show, Adrian had this pressing question. He wanted to know, he said, "Good evening. My question to you concerns Jamaica's vulnerability to being FATF blacklisted. Do you believe Jamaica can avoid FATF blacklisting by October 2023? If so, how?" Well, Adrian, there is a list of things that the government needs to achieve by that deadline. I don't know how advanced they are on that list, so I haven't been following it as closely as I should. I'm not sure if they publish it regularly to say we've achieved another one. So how many of the list have they achieved? Do you have that info, David?
Yes, I was actually at the conference back in, I believe it was May/June when the conference was being held in France. I wasn't there physically, I was there virtually, but so.
Yes, but do you know, because we reported on this a few months ago, but do you know it's now September? Like how far advanced are they towards those goals as of now?
So what the FATF, which would be the Financial Action Task Force, would have highlighted as one of the things that needed to be done was that we needed to demonstrate rather than just showing that we have implemented the changes alone. So instead of just saying, hey, we've, put a fence, in front of the pool, how do you actually, ensure that nobody can fall into the pool and drown? That's kind of like a simple analogy. So Dr. Clark kind of highlighted that things such as the Companies Office amendments and other things that should have been required by the Financial Action Task Force, those are just, being completely finalized now. And the government is hoping that by the time the next update comes, which is next month in October, that we can actually apply to come off the FATF grey list. So you have two lists. You have the FATF blacklist, which is where we don't want to be, and we're in the grey list, which is where we currently are. That list is also occupied by Barbados, Cayman Islands, Haiti, and a couple other countries, but we're currently in the grey list. So right now, Dr. Clark mentioned before that we're looking to apply to come off the list by next month. And the thing is, you apply and they say, oh, everything is there, and we're going to just let you off. They come to actually physically inspect, in the country to see that what you've actually done has actually been implemented. So if all goes well, we get the good news that Jamaica has demonstrated enough that they can come under an inspection and we can get off of the grey list. We got off the EU's non-cooperative tax jurisdictions list last year. So to get off this next list would be a good step forward for Jamaica.
And there's actually the annual conference that I host on the annual AML CFT conference, and I'm usually the host for that. That's coming up in October, so I expect to see those updates right around that time as well. Next question comes from Alex, who wants David's thoughts on the JMMB buyback.
They need to execute it. Like earlier today, I saw an article by Loop and I said, wait, are you serious? Like when I actually did the math, I was shocked. JMMB's price to earnings ratio is below 6 times, which is kind of insane. So basically it takes JMMB about 6 years on a normal basis, to return all the earnings relative to the price. So I just want them to just get started with it and just buy back as they see, volume coming into the market. Because with JMMB trading below its book value, it's actually the best time to be having a buyback because they're able to buy shares below the the accounted book value of the business, which, as I mentioned earlier, was equity by number of shares. And the thing is that the buyback might have been delayed, which would have ticked off persons, but in the same rate, it's come at a relatively opportune time, whereby last week JMMB hit a new 52-week low of $25 and a penny, which has been seen since 2019, which kind of shows you how far some prices are falling off. And for JMMB to win a buyback at this time and to extend a cheaper price prior to when they'd have announced the expected timeline of April 1, 2022, it works in their favor. And GK, Grace Kennedy, they're also trying to do a buyback as well. Let us see if they will take the same kind of timeline that JMMB took to actually get their buyback approved, because JMMB Group, NCB Financial Group, and Grace Kennedy are all listed on both the Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago stock exchanges. And the thing is, in Trinidad, they don't still have defined framework for buybacks. They have to actually take an exemption from their Securities and Exchange Commission. So that was the main holdup for why JMMB could not execute the buyback for so long. We don't have that kind of restriction in Jamaica, but in the case of Trinidad, you have to get permission over there before you actually do something such as a buyback. So Grace Kennedy is still waiting on the TTSEC. So JMMB got the green light. So let us just see them, buy the shares back and accrue for the shareholder value. And we saw them declare dividend recently too. So that's a good sign.
Okay. Next question comes from Philip, who, referring to NCB, why doesn't anyone think they're acquiring something? Because he heard the theories from you earlier, Basel III requirements, it could be a multiple of factors, but what about the possibility of them wanting to raise funds to make an acquisition?
That wouldn't surprise me. It's not off the table. It's just that when you're looking at the most probable reasons for actually doing an APO now, the capital situation with regards to its key subsidiary, which is NCBJ, would take priority and precedence in this discussion. And as I mentioned earlier, it could also be the case whereby they are converting some of the debt to shares in the company. But let us see, what happens when the EGM announcement comes around, if Listing gives any details about why they're doing an APO. But an acquisition for NCBFG in this kind of environment would further bolster its business in terms of the group. More than $2 trillion worth of assets, more than $180 billion worth of shareholder equity. That's kind of numbers you don't just produce overnight. That takes time and work.
Devon wants to know, when is 1GS listing?
So that I cannot confirm. So the refunds have already gone out. The base development has already come out. What would have happened is that 1GS would have applied to the JSC's listing committee to actually be listed on the junior market. And once that committee approves the listing, then within 5 business days, you actually have the listing. So not sure when, listing committee is actually meeting, because it's not public information, but it's likely they're going to be listed before the end of this month. We just don't know the specific date as yet. We're likely to see at least probably 1 or 2 days before the actual listing, the announcement. And if you have access to JTrader Pro, the day before the actual listing, you will actually see the shares in your account in that way. And if you're a JMB user, you get an email in the morning saying, hey, you have shares in your account for 1GS.
Okay. NanoSense wants to know what's the price of the APO. They haven't announced that yet. There's no prospectus yet. It hasn't even been approved by shareholders yet. So just hold on for that information when they make those announcements. Horace wants to know, do you think NCB will pay a dividend before this APO is offered to the public?
That's a very hard question from the perspective that when Listing came back and said, hey, a dividend is coming this year, everybody was like, yes, next meeting we're going to say dividend. And when the August release came out for the Q3 numbers, there was no dividend. People were like, oh my God. And you saw the massive sell-off in the stock price the following, day. And while Listing has committed to actually paying a dividend out before the end of this year, it's still something yet to be seen, because the board has to approve it, and the BOJ will likely have their commentary on a dividend payment as well. Let us see. Leachin said, hey, we're going to do it. So I'll defer to the chairman's words.
Okay, and the last question comes from Devon, who wants to know whatever happened to the land that Wigton bought out by Ferry? What's the plan for it? Do you have any information on that?
Well, somebody told me something. I won't repeat it, but based on the land that they bought and where they bought it, it's likely to be a commercial development at that space, because along that Churchill Ferry, on the side where they are, Tropical Batteries head office is there. You have Nestle's head office, and you have different businesses of significant value that are building out along that ferry stretch. So across the road, you have Chorus Fesco, and you have Derriman right at Ferry as well. So it's like to be a commercial development. Could be a warehousing space, could be just in a manufacturing space. We don't know, but the thing is, they own the land, which is finite. They're not making more land, so let us see what they actually put forward to do with that development and how it actually accrue value to shareholders who would love more dividends, but Wigton is just focusing on the change in winds.
Well, we're going to leave it there for this evening, David. Thank you so much for joining me and answering all those questions, rapid fire style.